The supreme leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, has declared a holy war against Iran, and radicals throughout Iran are calling for war until victory is achieved. Iran is ready to escalate even further because the day before, Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei made a statement accusing US President Donald Trump of breaking agreements. He promised a tough response by Iranian forces and his proxy forces, hinting at the same Yemeni Houthis, and once again called the US the Great Satan. This is an old slogan of the Iranian Revolution. The Great Satan is what America has traditionally been called in Iran since 1979. But here's what's important. Mojtaba himself has never used this expression, the Great Satan, since he took the position of Ayatollah. He voiced it for the first time, and according to regional experts, this is a signal. Iran is turning back to the language of total holy war with America. But behind this headline-grabbing story, there is a much stranger and more alarming story. The thing is, the person who supposedly declared this holy war hasn't been seen alive for almost 5 months. And in Iran, people are increasingly asking, is he even alive? Where is he? And if he is alive, is he the one making decisions? Or are completely different people making all the decisions for him? In this episode, I will address 2 key questions. First, to what extent is Iran actually prepared to escalate? Is this a bluff, or will he really go all the way to the end in the name of a holy war? And the second most interesting question is, who actually makes the decisions in Iran if the supreme leader is invisible? And here some very interesting details have emerged. My name is Alex Pichi. Let's dive into this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel. We're approaching 300,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate you subscribing. So let's go through everything step by step. Recently, the supreme leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, made a militant statement accusing US President Trump of violating the US-Iran agreement. And he promised a tough response from Iran and its proxy forces in case of further escalation of hostilities. Khamenei's statement came amid the renewed hostilities between the US and Iran, which have been ongoing for the 9th consecutive day. Both sides are intensifying their attacks and broadening the range of their targets. In addition, the Iranian leader announced that Iran is suspending its commitments under the June agreement with the US, the very ceasefire that briefly halted this war. Mojtaba Khamenei stated in a written statement that Donald Trump's signature on this ceasefire agreement, quote, is worthless and unreliable. And, as I already said, for the first time during his rule, Mojtaba Khamenei calls America the Great Satan. And this is an important moment. The point is that the return to the phrase Great Satan is a signal of returning to the classic revolutionary language of Iran after the collapse of the deal with the Trump administration. Simply put, the short period when Iran tried to negotiate with America in the language of diplomacy seems to be over. And now this rhetoric of hostility until final victory has reappeared. At the same time, pay attention to the careful wording. Mojtaba Khamenei promised a tough response from Iran and its proxy forces if the fighting continues to escalate. So, it's not an order to attack immediately like everyone attack. No, it's more like a conditional threat. If you escalate, you will get a tough response from Iran and its proxy forces. This is an important nuance that I'll come back to when we discuss how ready Iran really is to go all the way. But there's a problem here. Mojtaba Khamenei hasn't appeared in public even once since February 28, since that very strike that killed his father and, according to some reports, wounded him as well. No one has seen him for almost 5 months. He hasn't addressed the nation live, he hasn't made any appearances anywhere, hasn't shown up on camera, and there isn't even a recording of his voice anywhere. And all his statements are written messages released on his behalf by his office. Just think about it. Amid rumors of a coup at the top of Iran's government, the supreme leader of Iran declares America the Great Satan and threatens a holy war. But no one has seen the supreme leader alive for almost half a year. Even at the grand funeral of his own father, Ali Khamenei, which lasted a week in July, he never showed up. And against this backdrop, new details have emerged about the rumors you've probably already heard about. Allegedly, the supreme leader of Iran was taken out of Iran altogether. A report about this surfaced the day after this written statement in Majtaba's name was sent to the Great Satan, meaning America. The logic of the rumors is this: if the leader is sending threatening documents, these statements, but physically he is not in the country and no one can actually show him to the public. Maybe he was secretly evacuated a long time ago to a safe place and completely different people have been operating in the country for a long time now. Iranian authorities officially explain Majtaba Khamenei's disappearance as a response to an assassination threat. The logic is clear. Israel publicly promised to eliminate the new leader as well. Israel's defense minister Katz directly called him marked for death. And after Ali Khamenei the father was essentially taken out with a single strike, well, hiding his son seems like a reasonable measure. So it's reasonable to assume that he's alive and just hiding somewhere in a deep bunker. But the problem is that it's impossible to prove, which means rumors are just flourishing, well, obviously. And among them, there's a much more serious version than just being taken somewhere abroad. And this version goes like this: that he is seriously wounded or incapacitated. Trump, who, by the way, has access to American intelligence, mentioned a few weeks ago that, according to his information, the new leader of Iran is still alive but in rather poor condition. It's funny that Majtaba has already been nicknamed the Ghost of Tehran, or as they say, the Shadow Prince, so even Iranians have started actively joking about this. But rumors are rumors, and many are already asking, if the supreme leader is a ghost who doesn't appear and may even be incapacitated, then who is actually running the country and who is releasing all these statements attributed to Majtaba? Who is giving the orders to strike American bases? Who decides to close the Hormuz Strait? And who is actually leading this war? Who is responsible for it? The answer that almost all serious analysts have come to is this: Iran is not currently ruled by the spiritual leader. No, not the Ayatollah, but the military, specifically the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. We've already talked about this before, of course, more than once, but since there are always new subscribers joining this YouTube channel, let me briefly explain it again. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not an ordinary army. It is an ideological military structure created after the 1979 revolution to protect the Ayatollah's regime itself. Not the country, don't get it wrong, specifically the Ayatollah's regime. By the way, Iran also has regular armed forces, but they seem almost like a facade. Over time, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps turned into a state within a state. It controls not only the missiles and the navy, not just the military wing, but also huge parts of the economy. Construction, communications, oil sales, assets, the central bank, international relations, and so on, etc. All of this is under the control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And now, with the old leader killed and the new one hiding somewhere, the IRGC has taken real power for itself. Let's go through who these people are by name, because right now this is the real wartime government of Iran. The first is Ahmadullah, the second is Vahidi, the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. According to estimates by the Washington Institute for the Study of War and American Intelligence, it is Vahidi who is currently making absolutely all military and political decisions. That's actually on par with the leader, or possibly even in his place. Moreover, Vahidi directly hinted that in wartime all key positions should be directly controlled by the Revolutionary Guards. And notably, it was the senior commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, led by Vahidi, who in March pushed through the appointment of Khamenei as the supreme leader of Iran. In other words, the military themselves put this leader in power and now he owes them. Or maybe they just created the appearance that the country is still ruled by the Ayatollah. But in reality, the military seized power a long time ago and Khamenei is just a cardboard front. And here I'll quote Ali Vaiz. He is the director of the Iran program at the International Crisis Group. He is a person with extensive contacts inside Iran itself. And here is what he says, quote, Mojtaba Khamenei is not supreme. He may be a leader by title, but he is not all-powerful like his father was. The supreme leader is directly subordinate to the Revolutionary Guards, not the other way around, because he owes his position to them, and the survival of the entire system depends on them. The leader owes everything to the military, which means the leader depends on the military. The second key person is Mohammed Bakr Zalgadar. He is the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. This is the main body where decisions on defense, intelligence, and foreign policy are made. Zalgadar is also from the old guard of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a former tough commander of all the guards. And he took this position in March, after his predecessor Ali Larijani was killed in an airstrike on March 17. Zalgadar is an institutional coordinator, meaning he is the person who brings together all the decisions. And he is also a representative of the military side of the power structure, not the civilian one. And now, the most telling part. Where are the civilian politicians in this whole structure, the ones we usually think of as the people in power in Iran? Well, for example, the president or the foreign minister or the head of the Iranian parliament. After all, they are everywhere, and on the international stage, they present themselves as the real power of Iran. All of them have actually been sidelined. According to analysts, the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, has effectively been removed from key decisions. He doesn't make any decisions in the country at all. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and the Speaker of Parliament Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who by the way led negotiations with the Americans, cannot make a single decision without the approval of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That is, diplomats can propose something, but the military either allow or forbid it. In other words, the real power lies with the people in uniform, not with the politicians. This explains Iran's fierce desire to continue fighting. But this is where that very fracture or split within the system that we talked about in one of the previous episodes starts to show. There is a hidden struggle going on inside Iran. On one side, there are those who wanted to make a deal with the US. These are the negotiators Araghchi, Ghalibaf, and President Pezeshkian. That's what we've already discussed. On their part, they actually managed to achieve a truce. They even succeeded in getting some of the American sanctions lifted. But on the other hand, we have the radicals, the most fervent supporters of the Islamic Revolution, who consider any deal with America a betrayal and war as sacred because they are fighting against the great Satan. By the way, Israel is the little Satan, if you didn't know. The radicals are now accusing the negotiators of carrying out a soft coup against the Islamic Republic of Iran by signing a deal with Washington. Their logic is as follows. Instead of avenging the slain leader Ali Khamenei, these people capitulated. And they did this against the will of the new leader Machatba Khamenei. They say Machatba didn't want this, but they went against him and negotiated something with the Americans. And since Machatba is invisible and cannot confirm or deny what he wants, each side interprets his wishes in its own way. As a result, within the regime, one faction directly accuses the other of seizing power. And if Machatba, let's be honest, if Machatba were capable, wouldn't he have clarified this whole situation? Wouldn't he have stopped the hostility? Wouldn't he have come out and explained, look, there are politicians, they're responsible for this part of the government, there are the military, they're responsible for that. We're waging war for this reason, that reason, and so on and so forth. But Machatba doesn't do that. Now, let's try to answer the question, will Iran really go all the way, or are these just loud words supposedly from Machatba? Here we need to understand the logic that experts call escalation to de-escalate. Here's how Sanam Vakil explains it, for example. She is the director of the Middle East program at the Chatham House think tank. Iran is following a familiar script, escalating in order to later achieve détente from a position of strength. That is, the goal of the strikes and loud statements is not all-out war of annihilation, but to create maximum pressure in order to later bargain for better terms. And this is confirmed by Iran's own behavior. Look, Iran strikes at American bases in the region, closes the Hormuz Strait, attacks desalination plants in neighboring countries, but does all of this in a measured way. It widens the geographic scope, but avoids that one step that would definitely draw the US into a full-scale conflict and a massive, large-scale invasion. This refers to closing, in addition to the Hormuz Strait, also the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Even in Machabi's statement, the threat of a harsh response is framed with a condition. He says, if the escalation continues, then we'll strike so hard that no one will be left unaffected. That is, it still leaves the door for negotiations half open. But, and here's the main danger, this calculated logic only works as long as there's someone at the top who keeps their hand on the brake and can stop the military machine in time. And what do we have? The supreme leader of Iran is like some kind of ghost. The negotiators with the US have been discredited, they've been accused of treason. And against this backdrop, radicals are rising up eager for a real war and already proposing completely wild things. Well, for example, the former foreign minister, the radical Manucher Motaki, just recently on Iranian television seriously suggested capturing 100 American soldiers at military bases in the region and taking them to Iran as hostages. He says, look, remember when Hamas invaded Israel, took hostages, and then kind of bargained to exchange them? Let's do the same thing. Let's capture Americans and then make demands for their release. That's the problem. If decisions in Tehran are made pragmatically, meaning really following the logic of escalation for the sake of de-escalation, then of course there's a chance that it won't come to total war, and it's all just bargaining. But if the radicals take over, those who sincerely want a holy war for revenge and want to avenge their slain leader, then there simply won't be anything left to hold them back. And in a situation where the leader is a phantom and everyone interprets his will as they wish, well, it's impossible to predict which faction will win. The result, Iran, through its supreme leader, has effectively declared a holy war on the United States. He brought back into use the phrase "the Great Satan" to refer to the United States, broke the truce, and promised some kind of formidable response. But behind this tough rhetoric, there's simply chaos among the top leadership. The man who is supposedly declaring war hasn't been seen for almost 5 months, and he's either hiding from Israeli strikes, seriously wounded, or, according to rumors, has even been taken out of the country. Well, no one really knows the truth. In reality, the country is being ruled by the military. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is led by Vahidi and Izalgadar. Civilian politicians have been pushed into the background. Diplomats who achieved the ceasefire have been publicly declared traitors. And within the regime, one faction is accusing the other of a coup. At the moment, Iran is most likely playing a dangerous but calculated game. That is, it is escalating the situation in order to bargain for better terms, not to destroy everyone around and go into total war. But the louder the voices of radicals in Iran, the greater the risk of a real, all-out war. And the scariest scenario is not that Iran will decide to fight to the end on the orders of the supreme leader, but that there will be no one left to give orders. And the decision to start a major war will not be made by the supreme leader, but by some general. Or a radical group that seizes the levers of power at a moment when there is simply a vacuum and chaos at the top of the government. A state whose leader no one can even see or produce, and where the military and radicals seize power, is the most unpredictable and dangerous opponent of all. Why? Because there's not even anyone to sit down at the negotiating table with. It's unclear who's actually in charge there now and who you need to talk to. So all we can do is watch how events unfold. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.